Greetings and welcome to Growth Hacking Secrets. I'm your host, Muhammad Siddique from Atlanta, Georgia, and the co author of New Success Secrets available on Amazon. On this episode, we have a special guest, Samuel Donner. Samuel is the host of Finding Founders podcast. Please join me to give a warm welcome to our guest, Samuel Donner. Samuel, welcome.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. First of all, congrats to you that you are on the mission to find founders and helping them to share their message to the world, how they actually became who they are.
Yeah, it's been a really fun journey, starting super small and then getting up to some of the most influential founders in the world. It's been I never would have expected starting out. So super grateful to be where I am today.
Wonderful. So let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who you were surrounded with that inspired you to start that podcast, Finding Founders?
Yeah, so I was doing I was studying mechanical engineering at UCLA and realized that I thought it was kind of boring. And so I started getting into video production and was doing freelance video throughout college. I eventually actually worked my way up to a contract with Netflix, but I realized that I wanted to pivot the video editing skills that I've learned to a medium that was a little bit newer and more exploratory. And I was just seeing this was back in like 2018-ish. And I wanted to explore a medium that was exploding in terms of like people entering and thinking that it was valuable. And I discovered podcasts and all the people that saw value in that and were putting their time into this new medium. Like, wait, well, maybe I can take some of these video editing skills that I've learned from content production to podcasts. And so my first, I decided to tackle entrepreneurs because all my friends were entrepreneurs. And the first one was just with my roommate. And then from there, I put together an episode and eventually used that to talk to the founder of American Apparel, Dov Charney, and things just snowballed from there. We've talked to the founders of Ease, Soylent, Masterclass. We even talked to Dave Asprey a couple of weeks ago, who's the founder of Bulletproof Coffee. And since then, things have snowballed. The team is now close to 50 people, and we're running through things. And now we're making also some podcast IP for TV.
Wonderful. This is good, man. I'm so glad that you accepted our request to come on the share all that experiences and success secrets and the failures and missteps to avoid. So what are the top 3 missteps to avoid when you are actually launching a successful, like a Finding Founders podcast?
Yeah, I think this is something that I very much struggled with before starting Finding Founders. Was like the idea of shiny objects and chasing those shiny objects. So I was a bit before starting Finding Founders, I would look at what my friends are doing or looking at new trends. I'm thinking, oh, I need to jump on that. I need to go and explore each new social media, or my friend is starting a business. Maybe I should help that person out with that because that looks exciting and fun. But I quickly realized that if you're always chasing the shiny objects, you're kind of zigzagging back and forth and you're never actually moving forward with one thing. And so that was definitely a misstep early on. And then also just kind of somewhat related to that is being a generalist is not that great for starting something. You want to focus in as much as you can and own that that subsection of content, especially content, or that subsection of the market if you're looking for specific customers. And so instead of business just in general, or instead of just a podcast about things I'm interested in, I'm going to do business. Instead of just business in general, I'm going to focus on founder stories that are emotional and have music, sound effects, and voiceover. And so that's niching down to start is super important. And then the other thing is you can't. Initially, I started just doing making a podcast when I felt like it, and that was that did not provide the consistency needed to actually push things forward. And so those are the 3 missteps that I feel like I made initially that since then I think I've overcome.
Wonderful. This is good. That leads to my question. You are a young man. Hopefully you can handle this and it's easy to share. what's your single most professional failure so far you have had it in this podcast industry? Because you have interviewed many thought leaders by now,
Wait,
and
single most. Can you repeat that
failure,
question?
failure.
Failure.
And what did you learn from that, and how did you recover from it? So we don't do that mistake, so we can implement your lessons.
Yeah, I think initially when I was building out a team, uh, people would leave, right? The finding founders culture is one that is like a lot of work. And I remember there was a key person that was really important to the operation that left, and I was like, oh, why did they leave? Why, like, do they not like me? Do they not like what we're doing? And I put a lot of blame on myself, and that kind of like stagnated the operation for a little bit, because I wasn't sure how to handle what I thought was rejection.
Mhm.
But now what I realize is when people leave the organization, we have a little bit of churn. Obviously, a good amount of people stay, but what I'm realizing now is what that churn does is it's just cycling people who don't fit the culture. And so actually the more polarizing your culture is, and the harder that you actually work on something, and that's what you expect from other people, you'll filter out the people that don't fit with that really quickly. And then the people that fit with that vision are the ones that stay. And so that's something that was definitely a pain point and a failure early on, where each person that left that I thought was important, like, was like a stab in the heart. But now I'm learning to roll a little bit more with the punches.
That's a great lesson. I appreciate very much sharing. So let's switch the side and ask about your top three success secrets. Promise me you're going to give us your best ones. Okay.
Yeah. So top three, and I kind of mentioned it with the generalist thing, but niche down when you're starting out something. So I was talking to a friend who is a content creator, and when he was starting his YouTube channel, he was like, "Okay, I want to be everything that has to do with productivity." But that, even though that's a niche, that's way too big to own something on such a competitive platform like YouTube. And so he narrowed down, and actually found, okay, I'm still going to be talking about creativity, but I'm going to be talking about creativity within the scope of a single app called Notion, which is this note-taking software that's super popular. And so he made like tutorials on how he organizes his life through this app. And now he's owning that segment of the marketplace and seeing a lot of early growth. And so what you have to do is you have to choose that niche, grow within that niche, and then once you hit I guess like a point where the growth levels off, that's when you then expand, open the floodgates, and offer like more, or include another cohort of people. So maybe once he gets all the Notion people for that specific app, then he opens up to how he tracks habits, and then he becomes like the habit guy, and then eventually he becomes the productivity guy when he's big enough. So the niching down is really important. Also consistency, building consistency off a team instead of yourself. Something that really helped my consistency, where I wasn't just doing it when I felt like it, was having other people working on the project with me that held me accountable, and I held them accountable. And so then it's not my momentum that's pushing a project forward, it's momentum of everyone working on that project. And also it's more fun, which leads me to my next point. Like, I only do projects that I think are fun. I don't take on anything that is gonna just make me money. I'm obviously thinking a little bit about like how to monetize, but and how to bring in income. But that's actually not my primary focus. My primary focus is this going to be fun? And am I going to enjoy doing it? Because if it's fun and I enjoy doing it, then I'll have the consistency to bring that idea to fruition. And I'll also be putting like my mental bandwidth into creating and sustaining and growing that idea. And so I think like fun should always be at like a cornerstone and a keystone of why you take on a new project.
Wonderful, wonderful. Samuel, you have a 40-50 people team for Finding Founders podcast. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how do you monetize this podcasting? Because most of the people are not really monetizing it well, because this may be a great lesson for them.
Yeah. So I actually took a slightly different route. So first, a lot of the people are students, are volunteering. But what that does is I can see who is actually doing like a really good job within their whatever role they're doing. And then as I get paid projects for podcast production, which is what we specialize in high quality narrative production that tells a story, I can hire those people out. So what Finding Founders has allowed me to do is create a boutique production studio, a podcast production studio, in which I know what talent already works, and then I can hire that talent on for projects. And what's really happened is since starting Finding Founders, it's we have like a decent sized audience for a podcast, but by any means it's not large for by standards of some of the people on Facebook that are pushing like hundreds of millions of views a month. But what we are known are what we are doing is we're known within a very tight circle. And so my name is like, and Finding Founders is circling within circles that care about high quality podcast production, which is eventually, how I started working with Wondery and how I started making podcast IP for TV and film that would sell to, Amazon or Netflix. And so that's how I, that's how we approach monetization.
Wonderful. How the growth hacking secrets community people who are watching this now can support you?
Yeah, so you can check us out, Finding Founders. Look at Finding Founders wherever you get your podcast. You could also go to our website, findingfounders.co, and join our community. We actually do live events every so often. We have a live event coming up on March 2nd from 6 to 8 p.m. PST, and that will be on longevity and biohacking. So we're talking to some of the biggest biohackers and longevity experts in the world and talking about how to increase the quality and length of your life.
Wonderful. Findingfounders.co. So go ahead, check the website and also get the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite platform. Thank you so much, Samuel. We are about to wrap up.
Awesome.
I like to ask you about today's experience as a guest on the Growth Hacking Secrets. What would you say about your today's guest experience on the Growth Hacking Secret show?
Well, it was I felt that the whole process was very streamlined, really easy to talk to Siddique and set everything up, and I really appreciate that the time and effort that you've taken to build out these processes to make everything super smooth. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for your kind words. Really appreciate it. What would you say as a final word?
I guess as a final word, if you're starting something, build processes in which you can be consistent. So successful companies, successful projects aren't built out of sprints. They're built out of marathons, and you complete a marathon by not because you're honestly like passionate, or you're riding off passion, or you're riding off energy. You're riding off methodical processes and training. And so I think approaching a business in the same way is super important. Build processes so you can be successful.
Wonderful. Build processes so you can be successful. And I happen to believe on that one too. So thank you so much, Samuel, for sharing your wisdom with us today on the behalf of Growth Hacking Secrets community and our entire team. We really appreciate you. This is Muhammad Siddique signing off from Atlanta, Georgia. Until the next episode, all good wishes.